and welcome to week number 8, chapter 8 on handling conflict. I am like, that is probably like, if you look up spiritual gifts, because I know we were doing spiritual gifts earlier, all of our different types of tests and things that we took, you know, the shape test and whatever. And I learned that I am actually gifted at conflict resolution.
You're a good arguer?
I'm a good, really good, no, I am not a good arguer. I am lying. I am terrible at conflict resolution. And it's hard because I want to please people because I'm also a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And so I just rather run away. How are you in conflict resolution?
It's funny when you're talking about running away. I asked a group one time, who here hates conflict, wants to run away from it? You know, almost everybody raised their hand. Who here likes conflict? There's like 3 or 4. And I said, watch out for those people, right? If you like conflict, you're out of the norm because most people hate it and run from it. But conflict is just a part of life. And I think sometimes we think if we have conflict in a relationship, that means there's something wrong with the relationship. Not true. Because if you have a relationship, a friendship, family members, you know, it's going to happen at some point because we're all different. Yep. We all have different experiences, different expectations, and something happens, a thing happens that begins to create problems in our relationship. Somebody didn't do something they should have or did do something they shouldn't have. Whatever it is that happens, we have a judgment about it. We have a view about it. And then we have to decide at that point, are we going to talk about it? Are we going to try and work it out? Or do we need to let this go? And I think sometimes, sadly, a lot of us let things go that actually could be used to bridge a gap and help have a greater understanding with somebody else and work through it and have a better relationship.
Well, you know, as you were talking, it just brought to my mind, one of the things that I do in my family, you know, you have to have holidays.
Yeah.
You have to have birthdays, you know, and family comes together. And just because you're blood related doesn't mean, you're supposed to be best friends.
That's true.
And so my siblings, sometimes, you know, the conversation goes back into the past and how we were as children. And I don't really care how we were as children because I'm way past that age. And so often what I do to avoid some conflict, because it doesn't always lead to a good, is I get up and wash dishes a lot. And it helps me in our relationship because I'm not stuck in the past, but I can't help it if other people are stuck in the past. So sometimes conflict resolution is getting up and walking away. But I didn't walk away too far. I'm only 8 feet away.
That's right.
But it allows them they can talk, but I'm not going to get pulled in like in our boundaries. I'm not going to get pulled in when it's not healthy. I think also conflict resolution is loving people enough and caring about people enough to know when is the right time to confront the situation.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We think that when we're the angriest, it's the best time to address something with somebody because we have the courage, really, to say something.
Yeah, because you're mad right then.
Yes.
I mean, look at all the riots and things that people do, and they picket, and they're out there with anger because they want to be heard, and they don't like the situation. But how does that help people resolve? And how do you grow? So I was watching the other day, I love Andy Griffith, and I was watching the other day where Barney was upset because he didn't get a raise. And you know, what was he getting paid? You know, $2 an hour. And he wanted a raise, and he didn't get acknowledged, and he was upset because he'd worked for 5 years as a deputy. And about that time, somebody was jaywalking across the street in Mayberry. And he's going to go out there and he's going to tell them what they're doing is wrong. And they're going to get a ticket. And Andy goes, hold up. You're still mad about not getting that raise. And you're going to go take your anger out on that jaywalker when you know it's Miss So-and-so and she can't barely walk as it is. And we let her jaywalk. Yeah. And I love this because Andy, you know, he saw his blind spot. Mm-hmm. He loves Barney and he knows Barney would be reacting and instead of like thinking about what he's doing, you know, and maybe calm down. Mm-hmm. And then now, is it really that big of a deal? Do we need to confront it? But that's really the issue was that he was hurt because he had been rejected, you know, from getting a raise.
Well, that brings up the point that a lot of times when we are having to face an issue or trying to have conflict with somebody because of something they did or didn't do, we think it's about the issue. We start off thinking, we're going to talk about this, there's been some sort of injustice done, and I'm going to address this issue. And so we go to them, and fully in our mind, we expect them to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm all wrong, I see the error of my ways. So in our mind, it works out perfectly because we're right, they're wrong, everything's solved.
Right.
But conflict is never mainly about the issue. The issue is the starting point. Usually it becomes far more about the emotions we're having at the moment. We feel hurt, we feel betrayed, we feel not thought of, taken advantage, whatever it is we're feeling, that is the bigger issue. And we want to talk about the conflict, the issue, but really what we want from them is the respect or the care or whatever it is we feel we haven't been given in that.
And you have to peel away the layers often, and it's great to have people in your life that you can go and talk to, people that are wise, people that you can trust, and say, hey, I've got this situation. I'm not quite sure what to do because I don't want my emotions to get involved. I don't want to get ahead of God. I don't want to be, doing this at them and that kind of, because here's the thing. You have a choice in all your relationships that need to be reconciled. God gave me this a few years ago called 4 different kinds of reconciliation. So some conflict resolution is to rebuild the relationship. We're going to start over. We're going to try to fix whatever this is because I love you, you love me, and I want us to get healthier, right? Some of it's to say, we agree to disagree, just like Paul and Barnabas, right? We agree to disagree. We still love Jesus. We still have the same goals in mind, but we're going in different paths in order to reach those goals, and it's okay. Then sometimes the conflict resolution is to say you're sorry because you're the problem. You're the one who caused it. You need to say you're sorry and try to fix it, or the other way around. It's them, and they need to be told. But all of this is for the purpose of continuing to build the body of Christ, right?
Yep. I think a lot of times too, when we're involved in conflict, I think when we just try and solve the problem, the issue, we're really missing an opportunity to get to know somebody at a deeper level. And this could happen in friendship, family relationships, but this happened in my marriage. And I just kind of wanted to break down something that happened that helped me have a whole new understanding of conflict and Teresa. I was serving as a singles pastor, and I already told you about how many people we had. We had a massive ministry, so a lot was going on. And I remember one night after work, I was sitting on the couch, and as a good pastor, I was going through everybody's Facebook posts and making sure I liked them all and comment on them. And so after a very busy day, Teresa was sitting next to me, who also worked in the same ministry, and she was saying, can you put that away? And I was thinking, in that moment, I was thinking, well, she does the same thing. I see her on Facebook too. And I did the thing you should never do. I said, you do it too. And then she came back to me and said, I think you do it more than you realize. And then I said back to her, I think you have a double standard. Does that sound kind of familiar with some of the conflict that you've had? So I decided I didn't want to argue anymore, so I put my phone down. But even though I did that, you would think she'd be happy. No, it was very cold in the house, and she went off to bed, and we really never talked about it again. Until about 3 months later, we were at this conference, and they were talking about conflict. So they said, hey, we got an exercise for you. We want you guys to go back and talk about an issue you had recently. It can't be a big one. It's got to be something kind of more small. But talk about it, and we want you to do 2 things in the process of that. Number 1, we want you to identify the emotions you were having in the middle of that conflict. And then we also want to identify the thoughts you were having, some of the global thoughts. Sometimes you feel like you always do this, you never. So we went back and we spent some time and decided to talk about this issue with the Facebook posts and all that. So I remember as she was marking hers and I was marking mine, thinking, I felt judged and I felt like the double standard and I didn't feel respected. She was writing things like, I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel valuable. I didn't feel important. And it was interesting when we began to share those with each other. I thought, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want her to feel that way. And she was thinking the same thing. I wouldn't want him to feel judged. And so all of a sudden, this issue we thought this was all about really wasn't the issue. The issue was we had some deep hurts and feelings that were coming out of that. And then at another level, this deeper level, here's some of the thoughts that we were believing about ourselves. Teresa had lost her father at age 2. So in a child's mind, they don't understand that. And she felt abandoned. And then she had a series of men in her life that came and went, and she felt abandoned by them too. And so it kind of left her with this lasting feeling of, I'm not worthy of a man's time, or they're going to leave me if things get difficult. You can imagine if that's under the surface and I'm acting like she's not important, how that would impact her. Yeah. I had insecurities. I felt like I don't measure up. I had these kinds of things going on in my life. So here, all of this is tied to those beliefs in my life. And so it wasn't at all about the Facebook thing. It was about all these things. It could have been
anything, right? It could have been anything that you were giving more attention to. But that's how it came.
So many things are tied into issues. We think it's all about the issue, but no, it's about so many more things. And as a result of that, both of us became a lot more tender towards each other and realized we need to make sure we're not just talking about issues and taking the time to hear from each other and understand what's going on inside in the midst of conflict. And I think if you do that in your conflict, and hopefully the other person is willing to do the same thing, it really takes two people willing to work through it. You can discover something maybe deeper about this person that you never knew before. And we all need to make allowances in our life for other people's hurts and pains that they've had.
I think also if you're trying to be a model and example, if you're a parent, if you're a big sister, big brother, a spouse, or if you're or want to be a spouse, or even a daughter, whatever, is that you're also modeling that example. So if you can go to that person and say, hey, I really want us to work this out. I want us to talk about it. I know we don't want to talk about it, but I think it'd be good that we talk about it because you want to grow that relationship. And I think that shows them like, wow, they're willing to say they're sorry. They're willing to say, hey, I want to figure this out. And that has to mean something about you. Now, I can't control them. I can control me. And so some people are not going to want to talk about it. They're going to run the other way, or they're going to avoid it, or you may not even see them again. Of course, hopefully you will if you're married to them one day, but you'll see them again. But I think practicing, even at the basics, if we can't practice with our friends, if we can't practice with people that we're in ministry with, then how do we do it in a marriage? And so I have situations all the time that I have to confront someone. And I want to do it when I'm not upset and angry in the heat. And I know Pastor Freddie, he and I do a big singles retreat every year, Labor Day singles. And he always says, you got to get in front of that person. And I would just rather do Zoom. Zoom and texting, right? And he's like, no, you got to get in front of that person because you can't really interpret someone's emotions and where they're at when it's through Zoom. Now, obviously not everybody can do it, because if they don't live in the same city. But being in front of them is even harder.
It is.
But again, what is the goal? And the goal is always to build the body of Christ. Always, right?
Yes,
Dan?
it is.
And so we just want you to get better at conflict resolution. There's no perfection, but I think that effort to get better and better is going to help in all relationships, right?
It's true. In Matthew 18, it says if you have something against a brother or sister, go to them. It doesn't say text them, send them an angry email. Go to them. And when we take the time to connect with somebody and talk about our issues, we give ourselves the greatest opportunity to really resolve them. And I think God does this himself. He does this in our lives. He's very tender and gentle with how he approaches us. When he talked to Adam and Eve in the garden in chapter 3 of Genesis, Adam and Eve had fallen. They had blown it. And God didn't say, you awful people. He said, where are you? That's what he said to Adam, where are you? And then he had a conversation with Adam. And even in that conversation, there was a redemptive value. There was something he was showing them that had a future fulfillment, a reconnection with them. And so we can just look to God ourselves and realize he has a way of reconciling with us that really deepens and changes our relationship so we're reconnected and deeper. So we hope you guys have a good time with your questions this week. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this area of conflict. So if you are not good at it, maybe you can share and get some pointers from others in your group. But we hope you have a great time, and we look forward to seeing you next week.